In this podcast episode, Triangle Community Foundation Program Officer Sarah Guidi is joined by Katie Rose Levin, Urban Forestry Manager for the town of Cary, and Tatiana, Program Director for Partners for Environmental Justice, to discuss Our People and Our Planet, Climate Change, Conservation, and Community in the Triangle. Katie Rose Levin works at the intersection of people and planet, climate, and civil society. She enjoys figuring out ways to use trees and nature to create a healthy, sustainable, and socially just society. She has worked in the past as the Natural Resource Manager for Duke University, the Director of Consulting for Leaf and Limb, and as the Executive Director for Trees Durham. Tatiana is an environmental justice professional with a background in community development and environmental education. In addition to serving as the Partners for Environmental Justice Program Director, they are a doctoral candidate at NC State in the Agricultural and Extension Education Program. On behalf of Triangle Community Foundation, we thank our guests for participating, and we hope you enjoy this month's special Earth Day themed What Matters podcast episode.
Well, thank you both for being here. It's great to talk to you. I am excited. We're in April, the pollen is out, it's Earth Day, the 51st anniversary of Earth Day. And TCF, the foundation, has been a supporter of conservation efforts for years, and both land conservation and supporting nonprofits to raise awareness around conservation and more recently climate, including some organizations that you're involved with. So yeah, I'm just super excited to talk to you today and appreciate you both being here. To jump right in the past, I think environmental initiatives have often been treated as separate or sometimes in opposition to community initiatives. And I'm wondering if you both can talk about the importance of treating environmental and social outcomes as interconnected. And Tots, I was wondering if you could kick us off here.
I have very strong opinions about this matter because to me, and even when people ask me, what sort of work do you do, I say environmental and community development because I really do believe that they're deeply connected, and I think that in order to just have a holistic approach to community revitalization, which for me in my work, it's been a lot about working with marginalized communities and trying to help those communities to reach their goals and level of quality of life that they might want. And so for me, a part of a holistic community revitalization will include environmental aspects as well as other social things that might be going on in the community. And so, and this question has definitely come up other times and settings in my work, where should we prioritize money? And I've had experiences where we were trying to allocate dollars for community revitalization, and there's been sort of this tension and, how do we do that? Where do we put the dollars? And based on the community feedback that we were hearing, there was really equal interest in doing things like investing in parks, as well as doing things like investing in educational programs. And even in my work with PEJ, it's absolutely come up as we've been engaged in advocacy around equitable development. Last year, we did a lot of advocacy, in particular with the Downtown South development. And our organization has historically addressed and removal of invasive species, addressing wetland dumping, and mitigating urban flooding. And we were particularly interested in the urban flooding aspect, but what came out so much in those conversations with community members was how many other things were going on in the community. And really, there were so many different related things that people were concerned about. The cost that might be associated with that and the experience that come with that, then that links back to this discussion of housing and even, is the housing in good condition in the first place? What other issues might there be going on with that? And you might start to talk about income inequality and why is it that certain communities are are recovering at different rates, or you might even have a discussion about how some people might not be prioritizing that at all because they've got other issues going on. We had people bringing up, what about the shootings that are happening in the neighborhood? And so it's really important, I think, when looking at the landscape of the community and addressing revitalizing the community, to not just silo and focus on one issue, but how the people who are experiencing whatever in the community aren't going to be able to separate and parse out items.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And you mentioned PEJ, Partners for Environmental Justice, and you all have a long history of working in Raleigh in those communities. And yeah, it's really impossible to just silo money to one thing because they all impact each other. Katie Rose, I wonder if you want to add to that or comment.
Yeah, one thing that I really liked about what you said, Tats, is this idea of looking at it holistically and like the whole community and how it all interrelates. With Trees Durham, we were really focused on that as well, right? We actually looked at trees and our tree canopy cover. The reason why Trees Durham started as an environmental justice organization is because the research that came out that showed where there were racist housing policies in the 1920s and 30s that excluded primarily Black folks in Durham from owning homes. Those areas, those red line areas where Black folks they had to live but couldn't own homes, were also areas that didn't have trees. So only white folks planted trees in the 20s and 30s. 100 years later, all those trees are big. So now when we looked at where trees were in Durham today, it followed those racist maps from the 20s and 30s. So now we have a community where some folks have trees and some folks don't. But why does that matter, right? It matters because you can take those maps of where there are trees and where there are not trees and overlay where is there higher crime, where is there worse instances of asthma, heart attacks, diabetes, low birth rates, depression, anxiety, violent crime. And all of these are interrelated to our environment. All of them are separate issues that need to be tackled, but they can't be tackled alone or with one solution. And environment is part of that solution. So in the same way you said, Tots, if you have a house, but it's flooded all the time, and then it's filled with black mold, is that safe housing? Is that good housing? And we should not just ask for shelter. We need to ask for healthy shelter, affordable shelter. For trees, if you live in Southside in Durham, which is one of the hottest places in Durham, historically Black, one of the lowest canopy covers, surrounded by highways, folks who live there in this historically Black neighborhood are disproportionately impacted by pollution and heat, right? And so because they don't have trees, because they're breathing hot and dirty air, they pay more for healthcare costs, they have more asthma, they miss more days of work. They already are suffering from all of these barriers that are within our society that we need to address, and adding on this environmental cost of environmental pollution, it makes it even harder to live a life that everyone should live, which is healthy, happy, and sustainable, resilient. So I think that it's really important that we don't say either or, we say yes and. Yes, we should have community services. Yes, we should have healthy communities. Yes, we should have a healthy environment, because if you take out any one of those legs of the stool, the whole thing falls apart.
I appreciate those sentiments. And at the foundation, we have rebranded some of our programming into the sustainable communities, looking at both environmental outcomes and economic outcomes under this one umbrella. And it's really complicated, especially when you're trying to give money out in these narrow programs. So trying to take a more holistic look, but then also, recognizing that climate change is a real thing and, is impacting communities inequitably. So I'm curious, climate change is a global, really complex problem. From your perspectives, how are nonprofit organizations and jurisdictions in the Triangle addressing climate change at the local and or regional level? And, what are we starting to see? Katie Rose, I wonder if you can talk first both about Trees Durham and some of the jurisdictional local government work you're doing.
Yeah, so Trees Durham really looks at the individual and systemic issues, right? So we try to correct those historical injustices I talked about by immediately planting trees with communities, like going into communities saying, hey, we have trees, would you like to plant them with us, and doing it? Because every tree we plant impacts the place that we plant it and the people who live there. But we also want to work at systemic changes, right? We can't just stop the bleeding. We want to stop people from, we want to stop the injury from happening at all, like address the systemic issues that have caused these environmental injustices. So Trees Durham works on a citywide level to change codes and to change the way that we view trees and take care of trees, moving them from a luxury into an asset. In the same way we moved indoor plumbing from a luxury into, an essential way of living. So I think that from a nonprofit standpoint, a lot of people are looking at the helping stabilize what's happening right now, address the immediate concerns, and then creating changes in our laws and policies and ordinances so that going forward, these don't happen. And so that's my work with Trees Durham. And I think that the fact that Triangle Community Foundation has funded projects that do the immediate stabilization, the immediate trying to bring equality to environmental assets through lifting up communities that don't have it, as well as working systemically to ensure that going forward, we are just in our environmental amenities. I think that's a big part of that.
Thank you. And Tots, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about the programs that PEJ, Partners for Environmental Justice, is running right now and kind of how it relates to climate change on this big scale.
Yeah, so last year in 2020, PEJ secured grant funding partially from TCF and partially from the Conservation Fund to launch this program called the Raleigh Watershed Learning Network. It's based on a program in Atlanta called the Atlanta Watershed Learning Network. And we actually launched in February, the last weekend in February. We have adults 17 or older who we were prioritized people who live in flood-prone communities to come and participate in this program with us. We meet, well, the first go around, we did a 7-week cohort. We meet every Saturday for 3 hours. So it's quite intensive, 6 different modules of information. It's quite different from the Atlanta model where they're meeting once a month, but and we're actually wrapping up this coming Saturday. They're finishing out the program, and through this program, we have different speakers come in. Folks have learned about environmental justice. They've learned about stormwater controls. They've learned about flooding mitigation. They've learned about green infrastructure. There's so many different things, and they're then asked to do a community project. And so this weekend, we're going to be hearing from the participants in this program about the community projects that they're going to be, championing and taking from this program. We do give a $400 stipend for those who successfully complete the program, and they are welcome to use that to sort of do their community project or for whatever other thing that they might want to. And I think it's really important because we want to let people know that their time is valued, and that there is some worth. But I've been hearing from people that they feel like they get a lot out of the program. And it's been really helpful for us to be able to talk to, the folks out of Atlanta about what they did and learn from them. Also talking to folks out of Durham. Durham did a Durham Watershed Academy that Keisha Satterwhite sort of championed. And so we did a couple of roundtables with the Atlanta folks and the Durham folks when we were developing our programs to sort of glean, what can we do, what can we learn from them? What can we change so that, if they already went through a mistake, we can, try to avoid that. And so that was super helpful. And we've invited both the Atlanta and Durham folks to come and see our graduates this weekend. But a part of how it's contributing to climate change is that we're actually partnering with the city of Raleigh right now on doing a second cohort. They jointly applied for some additional funds to do a second go round. And we're very strategically trying to address the climate action plan that the city has, that they have out of the Raleigh Sustainability Office some interest in expanding the programs to be citywide, seeing how they can continue to develop these leaders to do this sort of water and environmental advocacy more broadly. Because the way that we did it, we had some very specific neighborhoods that we were targeting, and the city was like, we love this. We would love to see this be expanded and contribute to that climate action plan that they've got going. And it's been right now a fruitful partnership. And I think the participants who've seen the program through have gotten a lot out of it. And the second go around, we're going to switch to bi-weekly. The Atlanta program met monthly, and they told us, that wasn't enough as people will start to drop off. The Durham program was meeting every week, and people were like, that was too much, but we had already committed to do it every week. So next go around, we're thinking bi-weekly, but it's been pretty good.
That's great. I wonder, yeah, so Keisha with Ellerby Creek Watershed Association, we've supported their work too, and are just really impressed with this model and how people are really interested in something that seems really technical, like stormwater, like who knows what that actually is. And so it's great that it's spreading and you're sharing learnings. I wonder, to put you on the spot, do you have an example of one of those community projects, either that your participants are doing or in Durham or Atlanta?
I actually don't know what they're doing, what they've done in Durham. Hopefully if some of their graduates come this weekend, they'll let us know what projects they did. Keisha did share with me a worksheet that she had that she gave them to come up with their ideas. And I was like, I'm just gonna go ahead and take this and post this in our Google Classroom to give people inspiration. So appreciate that. But I know I went to the graduation for the last one for the Atlanta program, and the two that come to mind was somebody did a rain garden, which I know that we've had some folks in our program who are interested in doing rain gardens. Some folks have said they want to do it on their own property, and others have mentioned wanting to work with their church to do it. One of the things that we did was go out and tour the rain garden at the St. Ambrose Church. And so seeing how they did it, they were inspired and wanted to try to see if they get their church to do it. And then another one, a graduate out of Atlanta had done a communication project where they were like sort of evaluating the communication methods of the learning network and trying to make recommendations for the facilitator. So it's very broad on what people can do. I know somebody else had done something about how do you communicate and work with seniors in the neighborhood around these issues. So those are some of the things I've seen. For us, like I said, we've had people interested in doing rain gardens. There is somebody who wanted to organize their own cleanup. We had done a cleanup as a part of this program during the City of Raleigh's Creek Week. And somebody said they wanted to try to organize their own cleanup. There was somebody who was thinking about doing an art project and how can they amplify either the voice of what's going on with people in their community as it relates to flooding, or potentially doing something to try to offset people from dumping in storm drains with sort of an artistic feel because they're an artist. And so that was their skill set. We had somebody who wanted to do an educational session with their homeowners association. So yeah, those are some of them.
So like really tangible things that, again, and it's not just like environmental scientists doing this. There's an artist who's going to find their way to break into this. I love it. Those are great examples. I wonder, thinking beyond your own work with Trees Durham and Partners for Environmental Justice, what else is going on in the Triangle, whether it's nonprofits or local governments, that are doing work that excites you around like the intersection of climate and community and conservation? What makes you feel hopeful? Katie Rose, do you want to address that?
Yeah, I was actually, as Tats was talking, I was thinking about how nonprofits often sit in this middle space of activating citizens and residents, and then also sort of pushing government, and how that goes both ways. Trees Durham often worked with communities to do lift up the communities who are asking for more legislation or more protection, or working with schools or other people who just wanted to bring in trees for education or for beauty or other things like that. You asked what makes me hopeful. I'm hopeful because more people than ever are doing so many things to move us in the right direction. Tots just talked about a bunch of different projects, from art to education to advocacy. Working for the town of Cary, I'm working in a group of people where I was just talking to Morgan, who does our housing, about how we can integrate environment into, sustainable housing and fair housing and affordable housing. Cary has all these greenways, and how do we make them transportation and destination and, supportive for everyone who wants to walk down the greenway. With Trees Durham, we're planting food trees in neighborhoods because they're beautiful, but also provide some, food support. I just think that we've reached this critical mass where people are feeling really empowered to do things to move the conversation forward in the way that inspires them, they're advocating to their government. And at least, this is my first time working within a government, and at least with the town of Cary, like, they listen. I've seen citizens and residents write council, and they get back to them with personalized message, and they ask us staff, what can we do? Are we doing the best we can? So at least in this area and with the people I work with, I think that we see the issues and we're working to resolve them personally through personal growth, professionally through bringing our whole selves to work and seeing, what do I do that I can make a bigger difference? And then as a community to say, what do we want to be going forward? And it's got to be different than what it is in the past. So I would say, if people are looking for hope, the antidote to despair is action, right? And so Ellerby Creek Watershed Association is a really good example of a group that does direct action. So they help with legislation, they are doing community work, and also they maintain land, and also they provide nature walks and education. So they're like a really nice organization to get involved. And some people have time, some people have money, and some people have both. And to be able to donate whatever works best, we just have so many solutions. I think for the longest time, we were like grasping around the dark, and now the light is here, and we just have to decide which fire do we want to burn inside us.
Right. I appreciate that. Thoughts? Do you have thoughts? What's exciting? What makes you feel hopeful?
What's exciting or makes me feel hopeful is the youth that I get to encounter in the work that I do, and how excited they are. I went to a talk last month or something, and one of them was like, I want to do education through activism. And so I was just super impressed with that response, because I was like, oh, that's already on your agenda to get involved in that way and for that to be your career path. So I was just really impressed by that. But also I was saying that I'm going to be giving a talk this Friday for the Teen Science Cafe, where teens all around the state of North Carolina get on and learn about different things, and talking to them about careers in environmental justice. So I'm really excited about that. And I don't even remember how that relationship started, but the Teen Science Cafe invited me, and we've been talking about this for several months now, and now it's finally happening this Friday. And then, we've worked with several different organizations for projects that we've done with PEJ, and one of those has been Livable Raleigh, who I just find to be really awesome. I just had a meeting with them a week ago, and one of the people in the room was saying that, I can't remember now the name of the organization that he's with, but there is an organization in Raleigh that does tree planting. And he's like, if you ever want to plant some trees, we've got equipment and we've got seeds. And I was like, man, I literally was just out doing a butterfly garden with my teens this past weekend, and I was needing stuff and I didn't know who I could go to. And so I'm like, man, really wish I had known that a few days ago, but I'm so glad that we have this connection now. So we got that relationship, and that was because of Livable Raleigh. And the local Sierra Club chapter in Wake County has been really helpful. One of the people with that organization has served as a mentor for the Raleigh Watershed Learning Network. His name's Hua Huang, and has just been really awesome. And so many folks. Carmen Coffin, it's not necessarily an organization, but it's just doing a lot of great advocacy work in Southeast Raleigh, and has been a really awesome person to work with, and definitely continuing to foster the relationship with St. Ambrose Church. They were instrumental in the founding of PEJ, and they're looking for a grant to do some holistic spiritual healing through plants on site. And I was able to write a letter of support for them, and I really hope that they get those funds and can maybe make some connections with the trail network that's supposed to be getting built at the Bailey Drive Gateway site. And I could go on.
I know, I love it, right? There's so many organizations in the Triangle that are doing this, and even some of the more traditionally like environmental or conservation organizations are starting to have these like unique partnerships, all over the place. So yeah, it's super exciting. And I think, right, there's so many different ways to get involved. Katie Rose, you were mentioning, if you can give money, you can do that. If you have time, there's so many organizations, to get involved with. do either of you want to have one final sort of closeout comment on this panel?
I'll say, Tots just threw out like a ton of environmental organizations in Raleigh, and just to highlight a couple in Durham, Keep Durham Beautiful has been amazing. They do tree planting, they provide all sorts of support. River Creek Watershed Association, and then some of the more informal like Bragtown Community Association, Merrickmore Community Association, Southside Community Association, Trinity Park. I bring this up to say is like, there is somebody, if you are interested in something, like there is somebody else who wants to do it with you. So especially during COVID, it's easy to feel isolated. It's easy to feel like overwhelmed by all the news. Like a lot of us are feeling better since the election and seeing things move in a positive direction, but there's still, this is a traumatic time for us. Even if there wasn't a pandemic, there would still be climate change. And even if there wasn't climate change, there'd still be environmental justice. And even if there wasn't environmental justice, there'd still be just racial justice and housing insecurity. And every one of those things has solutions and people are doing it. And like, we are important. I love that saying no one drop thinks it's responsible for the flood, because we provide those like drops of hope and that drop of light and that drop of water that, together we cure the thirst for community and justice and healing and environment. So I would say find someone else who's working on this, or start doing it yourself, and people will come. Like, this is a fantastic place to live. And because we all are moving in this direction, that is forward and wonderful and up. So.
Tots, any final words?
One other thing I want to mention is that PDJ is currently trying to recruit people who might be interested in participating in a Friends of the Walnut Creek Wetland Park group. And so if anyone knows anyone who might be interested in that, feel free to email me or find us on social media, send us a DM, because we are people who are interested in advocating for the park and just volunteering at the park and participating in issues at the park. So it's my last thought.
That's great. And if you don't know about the Walnut Creek Wetland Center, Google it. It's got a really interesting history, and then reach out to Tots and help it keep going. Well, thank you both for being here. We really appreciate the work that you're doing with your organizations and outside of it. And I feel really lucky to live in this region where we're doing so much really like innovative work around climate and community and justice. So thank you both. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Tots. It's been really fun.
Yeah.
We invite you to visit the websites listed on the screen if you are interested in learning more about and supporting the work that Katie Rose and Tatiana are doing in our state. Want to join us in collectively supporting the pressing needs in the Triangle today? Visit our website to learn about our Fund for the Triangle to become a catalyst for change.